Looking for an alternative to expensive macro lenses? Let's look at the Raynox DCR-250. Hey, thanks for joining me. Before we get started, it's a little bit windy outside. I've got a good windsock on my, or one of those fuzzy things on my microphone, but I know that there's still a little bit of wind noise, so I apologize for that. Today I want to talk about an alternative to expensive macro lenses. Now, there are some good affordable macro lenses like the 30mm Olympus 30mm macro that I've done a video about before. But, you know, the new 90mm Olympus macro lens was just introduced, and I was looking at that and I thought, man, it really looks cool. And then I went on their website and looked at the price and, oh my gosh, $1,500 for a macro lens. So, you know, and here's the thing. It's not that I couldn't spend $1,500 for a macro lens. I could. I have probably more hobbies than a sane person ought to have. And one of those is collecting and repairing and fixing up vintage musical instruments like old guitars and ukuleles and banjos and banjoleles and stuff like that. So the thing is, I like to spend my money on things that are going to increase or at least hold their value over time. Now, sadly, that's not the case with cameras anymore. Cameras are from a bygone era, you know, old Leicas and Canons and Nikons and stuff from the mechanical age. Yeah, those things are investments. They're going to maintain and maybe, you know, increase in value. But today's electronic cameras, not so much. I heard a guy one time talk about everything we buy can be put into two categories, and he called those categories guns and butter. Guns being things that increase or at least hold their value, and butter being things that are consumables. Once they get to a certain age or wear out or whatever, they're gone. They're used up. And that's the way today's cameras are. Sadly, today's cameras, you know, once the chips become unavailable or they're not repairable, they become techno junk. And that's sad, but it's a fact of life. And so as a hobby, if I decide I'm going to spend some significant money on something, it's probably not going to be on something like that. Now, if I made a living with cameras, if I, you know, my day-to-day business was taking pictures and I needed that, you know, the cost of that lens to do the work that I'm going to do, then absolutely I would spend the money. And if at some point in the future that becomes the case for me, that I'm making a living doing this photography stuff, then I would spend that kind of money. That wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't bother me. But as just a hobby, for me, that's kind of a bit much. So let's take a look at this Raynox DCR-250. Before we get started, if you would, please click on the like and subscribe buttons, and let's take a look at this. So the Raynox DCR-250 is a supplementary lens that you can attach to the front of an existing lens. And it's not just a simple single element, cheap close-up lens like they used to make for cameras a long time ago. This is actually a 3-element high refractive index glass lens that's a very high quality. Now, you'll see actually, if you look at the world of macro photography, you'll notice that a number of macro photographers will attach these to the front of macro lenses. I mean, I've seen a lot of well-known macro photographers put these on the front of the 60mm, the Olympus 60mm macro, and to increase its magnification. And it does a stellar job. So when you buy it, you know, you get the box, of course, and you get a little hard plastic case, which is kind of nice. Comes with instructions, and the instructions also cover the DCR-150, which is another version of it that is slightly lower in magnification. It's only 4.8 diopter, where the DCR-250 is an 8 diopter magnification. Instructions are also in, looks like Japanese, if you want to read them that way. So, and this thing folds up like a road map. Okay. It also comes with an adapter that allows you to mount it on a variety of lenses. So this adapter has spring-loaded threaded sections here, and it will fit anywhere from a 52mm lens to a 67mm lens. Now, and it works quite well, snaps right on. It really is only holding by two kind of small points, and you kind of have to fiddle with it a little bit sometimes to get it centered. So what I did for the lens that I use it on is I bought a series of step-down rings. Now I bought, these things look like a cone. There was a whole bunch of them. I bought them on Amazon. I'll see if I can find it again and put a link in the description down below. But I was able to take three of these step-down rings. This is 43mm, and I was able to put rings on it to adapt it so that it would fit the lens I want to use it on. And so I'm using this on a 58mm filter thread lens. The lens I use this on most of the time is this Olympus 40-150, and this is their very inexpensive f4 f5.6R lens. You can buy this lens for used less than $100 new. I think they're about $150, and very affordable. Now the Raynox lens is also very affordable. It's been a little while since I looked. I probably should have looked this morning, but I think you'll find these on Amazon or B&H and other photo places around $70 to maybe $80, $85, something like that. They're very affordable. So what you do is you screw this on the front of your zoom lens. Now the cool thing is, I like the screw-on attachment. It's more secure. It keeps it centered. Also looks a little nicer. So I don't, unless I stick this on another lens that I don't have some adapters for, or just want to do something quick, I don't really use this. I tried it for a while and it works just fine. I just wanted something a little more sturdy and something that kept the lens well centered. This is all plastic, and the body of the Raynox is also plastic, so you have to be careful when you're threading it into things that you don't cross thread the threads or something like that. You want to be kind of careful. But once you do that, and these step down rings I bought are aluminum, so now that they're mounted on there, as I move it from lens to lens, I really don't have to worry too much. It also comes with a couple of lens caps, so if you're storing it, you can cover it up. And it also comes with a little warranty card and a brochure from Raynox. Brochure is kind of interesting to look at. Raynox makes a wide variety of supplementary lenses that do all kinds of things. They have for video cameras and other cameras, they have wide angle adapter lenses, so you can you can make your video camera see a wider angle, and they have some other stuff that might be fun to play with. I haven't ever tried them, but I bought the DCR-250 because I saw a lot of people recommending it online. There's actually, on a Facebook group I'm a part of, there's actually a Raynox DCR-250 Facebook group where people show the work that they do with this. And I just saw some work that was just stunning, stellar. I mean, I couldn't believe how good it was for a supplementary lens. So I bought this one and started using it on this Olympus zoom lens. Now, most of the time, I try not to use this. This lens, if you look at the tests on it, does best between 40 and about 100mm. When you run it all the way out to 150, it's not as sharp as it is at 100mm. So I tend to kind of stop at 100, but I've actually used it all the way out at 150 and got really good results. And it's probably because when you're using this supplementary lens, you're really mainly using more of the center of the optics, not the edges of the image. And so it's those areas that might get a little softer are not really used. So I don't know, it works pretty good. At 150, I've taken some pretty amazing pictures with it. The working length on it, gives you plenty of working length, so it's not too bad for insects. The magnification will vary depending on the lens you use it on and the focal length that you set the lens at. So I'm not going to try to state any specific magnification. You'll see some of the pictures I took, and you'll see that it gets right up there. I'm sure very close to 1-to-1 with this setup, and it's really easy to use. Now, one of the cool things about it, one of the things I really like about this is that the autofocus on the lens still works, kind of. And so what you do is, as you're focusing on a subject, you move the camera back and forth till you get the focus really close, and then when you touch the shutter button lightly to engage the autofocus, it'll autofocus and lock in on your subject. So, you can't go from infinity. Obviously with this on here, it's not going to focus to infinity, but you can't just, push the button and get it to autofocus like a macro lens, like say the 30mm does, and it'll just find whatever, you're pointing it at, and it'll focus on it. What you have to do, like I say, is move the lens back and forth a little bit until you get the focus really close, and then touch that shutter button. It'll lock in on the focus. You can take a picture. Another thing that I like about it, I think you guys have seen my little flash diffuser that I built here. The front of the lens has a step in it right here. And the thing that's really nice about that is when I use this diffuser, it locks into that step really well. So if I'm using a flash on this with a diffuser, it locks right into that, stays right on there. I can put a shoe mounted flash on the camera, aim it at the diffuser, get some nice diffuse light on my subject. and this really works good. So it's for me, it works very fast. It's easy to handle. I can work pretty quickly with it. And the image quality just blows me away. I just did not expect, I think when I bought this, they may have gone up a little bit. I'll have to look at the price. But when I bought this, I think they were like $69. And I just couldn't believe how well it did, how good it was for that price. And like I say, one of the things I did notice is that a lot of, I guess what you might call professional macro photographers, a lot of them that you see, online, and that's what they do for a living, they use the Raynox on the front of their macro lenses to increase magnification. So that kind of told me that, if people like that are using it, it must be doing a pretty good job. So, and like I say, it is not just a simple one element diopter lens to increase magnification like they used to make. Kodak used to make those, and other companies, filter manufacturers used to make those for close-up lenses that you could put on your camera to shoot a little bit closer. This is much more sophisticated. Like I say, it is a 3-element design, and it just does an amazing job. So, if you are looking for a way to do macro without breaking the bank, and you want to get some really good high-quality images, especially if you happen to already have like a 40-150 or some kind of medium to telephoto zoom lens, then all you need is that Raynox. And like I say, I will try to find a link for these adapter rings and put it in there, as I think if you're going to seriously use the lens much, you want to use those step up rings or step down rings, whatever they're called, to mount the Raynox instead of their little spring-loaded thing. Like I say, this will work, and I used it for a while before I got these in. Of course, how Amazon is, you get them pretty quick. So I use this, but the thing I did notice is that sometimes the lens wouldn't be centered well, and I'd have to kind of fiddle with it to get it to, because it's on these 2 springs, and so sometimes I had to fiddle with it to get it to center just right. So that's why somebody else online, I forget who it was, recommended getting the step-down rings, and so I went and ordered those. Anyway, let's take a look at some pictures from this. You can kind of see the results. Some of these pictures will be ones I've used in the past, because I have talked about this in some time back on another video. And there's some new pictures that I've taken. So let's take a look at some of the pictures, and then I'll catch up with you afterwards. Well, there you have it, the Raynox DCR-250. I did look this up on Amazon in between takes here, and it's still available for $69.99. A couple of vendors had it for $71.99, so $70 to $72. You can still get this. Really an amazing accessory to have, even if you already have a macro lens. Now, I wouldn't use it on the 30. That's probably a little too short a focal length. Raynox recommends it for longer focal lengths. But if you have the 60, or if you're shooting some other format, APS-C or full frame, and you've got a longer focal length, macro lens, I would still get one of these. Like I say, some of the images I have seen where this was used on the front of the 60mm Olympus, the 60mm f2.8, were just amazing. And so even if you already have a macro lens, I think for this kind of money, definitely something to have. So anyway, that's the DCR-250. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of those images. I think you'll have to agree that it really does a pretty amazing job, especially for the price. So if you have any thoughts or questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. And as always, thanks for watching.